Hey, welcome to the series of everything you need to know about Python in simplest possible way. In the series of pattern printing, so far we have seen so many patterns. In this video, we will see how we can actually print this particular pattern. So, if you could carefully observe this pattern here we are having some uniqueness in this pattern. Here, if you could carefully observe this diagonal we are having is coming in this direction. Later, this A value is going in this direction. Like after that, we have B and C like that. All these alphabets having in a specific shape. Like you can consider that it was having a C shape. Like that, we are having all the alphabets here. At the end, we have this highest alphabet. In this case, E. Like that, this specific alphabet shape is having. So let us go ahead and see how we can actually print this particular shape. So in order to print this particular alphabet shape, we will first divide this whole pattern into two different patterns. One is this above pattern and another one is this below pattern. First we will print this above pattern now. Later we will print this below pattern. By combining both of them, we can able to get the whole pattern. So let us go ahead and see how we can actually print this particular above pattern. So if you could carefully observe this pattern, we have 5 rows, right? So for that reason, I will take a variable rows and I will assign the value as 5. So after that, what we will be doing is that if you could able to observe carefully, apart from these alphabets, we are also having these spaces, right? Here we have spaces. We need to print those spaces in order to get the exact pattern. For that, in order to keep track of these spaces, I will use a variable spaces and I will assign how many number of spaces that we are having in first row. So if you could observe carefully, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 4 spaces. That is what I will be assigning now. And I don't directly assign the value 4, but rather I will assign the value as rows minus 1. Because if we in future, if we change the value of rows, if we directly assign spaces as 4, it will be affected. The pattern will be affected, right? So for that reason, I am mentioning rows minus 1, which results the value 4. So later, in order to keep track of these alphabets, I will take this first alphabet that what we are starting with, which is A, and I will assign that to a variable which is alpha. So the one thing we need to keep in mind is that we cannot directly keep track alphabets directly. So for that reason, we need to convert these alphabets to equivalent integers so that we can able to keep track of those integers in order to get all the alphabets. So for that reason, we have a specific encoding formatting which is ASCII values. So by using ASCII values, we will be converting this equivalent alphabets to its equivalent integers. So if you don't know about ASCII values, watch my previous video which is alphabets pattern printing 1 where I have clearly explained all these things. So for the time being, we will be knowing what is required to print the pattern. So for that reason, we will be converting this alphabet which is A to its equivalent integer number by using a specific method in Python which is ORD. So I am mentioning ORD and I am passing this alphabet A to ORD so that we can able to get a this particular alphabet A's equivalent integer number. So later what we will be doing is that in order to generate this many number of rows, I will use a for loop. So for I in range, so we need to generate the range of values. As you can observe in this pattern, we are starting with 1 in the first row and going and keeps increasing and going till the value of this row which is fifth row. So for that reason what I will be doing is that I will take the start value as 1 and end value as how many number of rows we are having plus 1. So by mentioning plus 1, we can able to go till the value of rows. That is what the functionality of range. So in this for loop, what I will be doing is that in order to know what values we have got in I will just print the value I here. So now if I execute this, we have got the values that is what we have expected, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So now you can correlate these values of I with this particular pattern here. So now you can compare the first value I with this first row. We have one alphabet here, right? So in the second row, we have two alphabets. You can compare that with this particular I value. In the third row, we have three alphabets, you can compare to this particular I value here. Like that, in every single row, we have this particular I number of alphabets. So for that reason, we need to generate those many number of alphabets in every single row. You can observe these are repeating, right? So when we have repeated statement, we generally use loops. That is what I will be doing now. In this for loop, I will mention one more for loop for j in range. So now we will be generating the range of values as we have discussed, which is starting with 1 and going till the value of how many number of elements that we are having in that specific row, which is nothing but I. So I will mention I plus 1. So by the functionality of this range, we will be stopped at the value of I itself. So in this, what I will be doing is that instead of printing this particular I will print the value which is alpha. So that is what we are using, that is what we try to print here, right? So here, if we directly print the value alpha, we will get the integer values. So in order to get the alphabetic value, what we need to do is that we need to convert this integer value to its equivalent alphabetic value. So for that reason, in Python, we have a specific method which is chr. So by using this chr, we can actually convert the integer value to its equivalent character value. So that is why I have mentioned here. So after that, if we directly execute this, we will get something like this in every value in a new line. So in order to format these particular values in this shape, what we need to do is that we need to convert and format accordingly. So for that reason, I am mentioning end as a single space. So by mentioning this, we can able to get everything in a single line. So after that, what I will be doing is that I am printing nothing. So by default, we have this end parameter. End parameter by default having a new line character, so that we can able to get a new line character after completion of this inner for loop. So now if I execute this, we can able to get this kind of shape. So for the time being, we will arrange the shape. So later we focus on the values. So for that reason, in order to get this shape, what we need to do is that we need to print the spaces, right, that we have discussed previously. First we need to print spaces, then only we can able to get the exact pattern. So for that reason, here we are printing these alphabets, right? So as by observing this pattern, we need to print the spaces before we need to print the alphabets. So for that reason, as and when I enter into this outer for loop, I will print the spaces. So by using this space and by multiplying this space with the spaces variable, so I am mentioning this end as nothing. So by using this, we can able to print how many number of spaces that we required on each row. So if you could observe this pattern carefully, in every single new row, the spaces are keeps reducing, right? So for that reason, you can observe here the spaces are keeps reducing, and as it comes to the fifth row, the spaces are zero. So for that reason, we need to decrease the spaces. For that reason, I am mentioning spaces minus equal to 1 after completion of this inner for loop. So by mentioning this minus 1, the spaces will keeps reducing. So now if I execute this, we can able to get the similar pattern here. So now we need to arrange the values, right? So for that reason, we need to modify this code a little bit so that we can able to get the alphabets exactly what we have in above. So for that reason, what we need to do is that here we are assigning this particular alpha in the third line. So what we need to do is that in order to get the pattern, we need to assign this particular alpha inside of this outer for loop, because this inner for loop here is responsible to print the values in every single row. And if you consider every single row, we are starting with A and going till some specific alphabet. So for that reason, if we mention this particular alpha here, this outer for loop will continuously initialize the A, so that this inner for loop can catch up that alpha value and start printing the alpha with the specific alphabet which is capital A, so that it will be every row will start with the capital A. So I hope you can able to understand why I have mentioned in here this initialization. So later what we will be doing is that we will be increase this particular alpha by 1, so that we can able to get B, C, D, E, like that we can able to get. So for that reason, I am increasing this alpha in here. So now if I execute this, so we can able to get the exact pattern. That is what we are expecting here, right? So now I hope you can able to understand this logic to generate this particular pattern. So far, if you found this video interesting, hit the like button so that we will go ahead and print this particular below pattern and get the whole pattern. So for that reason, in order to print this below pattern, we can observe we have 4 rows, right? So in order to generate those 4 rows, what we will be doing is that we will be using a for loop. So for L K in range, so we need to generate the range of values. So by using those range of values, we can able to get this particular pattern. So for that, as you can observe, in the first row we have 4, in the second row we have 3, in the third row we have 2, in the fourth row we have 1 elements or 1 characters here. So for that reason, I need to start with 4 and I need to go till the value of 1. So for that reason, I will start with rows minus 1, which results the value 4, right? So after that, I need to go till the value of 1. So for that, I am mentioning 0. By the functionality of this range, I can go till the value of 1. So later, I am mentioning minus 1 because we are reducing the values, right? So for that reason only, I have mentioned minus 1. So in this for loop, in order to know what values we have got, I will just print the value k here. So now, if I execute this, we can see the values as we have expected 4, 3, 2, 1. So we need to map this particular k values with this particular below pattern so that we can able to get the whole values there. So for that reason, if you can observe carefully, in every single row we have this many number of k number of alphabets. In first row we have 4, which is nothing but k value here. The second row we have 3 alphabets, which is nothing but the value of k here. So like that, these k values can be related to how many number of characters we are having in each row. So that in order to print those many number of rows, we will be generating those many number of values. So in order to generate, we will be using a for loop. So for L in range. So now as we have discussed, we will start with 1 and go till the value of k plus 1. So by using this k value only, we are generating those many number of values in every single row. So now inside of this, what I will be doing is that instead of printing this particular L, I will print the value of alpha. That is what we are using to keep track of this alpha, right? So now I can able to print this alpha only when we have this alpha initialized, right? So by observing this above pattern, this alpha only initialized inside of this particular for loop. So for that reason, we need to initialize this alpha inside of this for loop as well in order to get this a starting at every single row. So I hope you can able to understand why I have mentioned this particular alpha in here. So later what we will be doing is that we will be incrementing this value of alpha to get increased the alphabets, right? So for that reason, I am increasing AL HA plus equal to 1. So now I am increasing the value of alpha. So we can able to get the alphabetic values. If I execute this, we are getting some error. Here I have done a typo. Now if I execute this, we can able to get this particular integer values. Now we will convert that integer values and we will format accordingly so that we can able to get this below pattern. So for that, what I will be doing is that as we know by using this CHR method, we can convert the integer values to its equivalent alphabetic values. So that is what I will be using now, this CHR passing this particular alpha. So after that, in order to format these particular values to get the exact pattern, I will be using this particular end, and after that I will be printing a new line character here. So after here I will be printing a new line character. By simply mentioning this print, we can able to get a new line character by this end by default new line character. So now if I execute this, we can able to get this kind of shape here. So now what we need to do is that in order to get the exact pattern, we need to modify this a little bit so that we can able to get. So apart from that, you can observe some modification here, which is we are not getting the A's exactly that what we have got here. So because I have cutted this particular initialization above, so for that reason only I am getting like that. So now we need to have this alpha initialization in this for loop and in this for loop as well. So now if I execute this, we can able to get above pattern. We need to arrange this below pattern exactly that what we have here. So in order to do that, you can observe we have spaces before these particular alphabets, right? So we need to arrange those spaces. So in order to arrange those spaces, what I will be doing is that as and when we enter into this outer for loop, I am printing those spaces as like we have done here, right? So in that sixth line, we are doing the same thing here also. So I am taking a space and I am multiplying the space with spaces variable, and in the end I am mentioning nothing. So after that, you can observe here the spaces are keeps increasing, right? So for that reason, after completion of this inner for loop, I am increasing the spaces. So now if I execute this, we still don't get the exact pattern. We will fix that anyway. So now you can observe we are getting something like this. The reason why we are getting something like this is because here, if you could observe the spaces here, the spaces variable we are using for both above pattern and for both below pattern. For that reason, the spaces got some trouble and getting the shape like this. So for that reason, we need to arrange those spaces. Right? So before arranging, let us know what value we have got in spaces. So I am printing spaces to know the value. So here you can see the value of spaces minus 1. So here in this below pattern in the first row, we need to get a single space here. So that means in spaces variable, we need to get the value 1. So for that reason, we need to increase the spaces by 2 so that we can able to get the value of 1 spaces. So for that reason, I am mentioning spaces plus equal to 2. So by mentioning place equal to 2, we can actually increase the spaces by 2 so that we can able to get the spaces exactly what we wanted. So now if I execute this, we still are not able to get the exact spaces. The reason is because I have done some mistake here. I need to mention spaces plus equal to 1. So for that reason only I am getting like this. So now if I execute this, we can able to get the exact pattern. That is what we have expected, right? So we can compare this pattern with this particular pattern. So now I hope you can able to understand this logic to generate this pattern. So if you found any difficulty while understanding this logic, I sincerely suggest you to watch the video once again carefully so that you can able to understand. So if you have confusion in formatting through this end and through these print statements, I sincerely suggest you to watch my previous videos about number pattern printings where I have clearly explained all these formatting things. So as said further, so now what we will be doing is that we will dynamically take input of these rows and print the pattern accordingly. So for that I am asking input and I'm asking user to enter rows here. So now if I execute this, it was asking me to enter rows. Let's say if I give the value, let's say 3 here, I can able to get the A's in this shape B and C, which is the value of this particular 3, right? So let's say I will give some other number. Let's say I am giving 8 here. Still we can able to get the shape. We have A's, B's, C's, like that we are going till the value of H, which is the value of 8 here, right? So now I hope you can able to understand this logic and able to generate this kind of a logic to generate this particular pattern by any number given by the user. So I hope you have understood this logic and I hope you have enjoyed this video. If that is true, hit the like button. In the next video we will see how we can actually generate this particular pattern. So to stay updated with my latest videos, subscribe to my channel and turn on the notifications to all so that whenever I upload any video, you will get the notification. So thank you for watching this video. See you in the next one.